But first, we'll sit down with Megan Horne. Megan doesn't have a background in motorsports, but that hasn't stopped her from achieving the ultimate level of success, working for Hendrick Motorsports and the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. So let's sit down and find out, what decisions did Megan have to make along the way? What was her education like? And what does the future hold for her? Exclusively on 3 Wide Life. All right, Megan, so we're here at Hendrick Motorsports, and we were talking before the cameras rolled. You kind of have a background in motorsports, but you don't as well. So take me all the way back. What's your background in motorsports, and what was your first exposure? My first exposure was back in middle school. My sister actually had the hobby of racing go-karts, and that's how she met you. And I gave it a little try. I did one race, and I think that was it for me. I really enjoyed the scorekeeping more so than the racing, which makes a lot of sense with my, the profession that I chose. So that's where it all started, and it eventually just led into other things. And you came back into the picture several years later, and we got to see you go through your career with ARCA and a couple races, truck and nationwide at Michigan. So it really got us back into it, and you've always had your presence there. And it's pretty much interesting that we're sitting here today talking about this together. So the go-karts, you just never had a desire to work on them or get analytical with them. It was just kind of bored you, and you wanted to go do something else to pass the time at the track. It wasn't boring. It was actually, I learned my way around the go-kart while my sister raced. I didn't want to be behind the wheel per se, but I did learn my way around the go-kart and helped with setups and everything like that. So it got me introduced to the field and the engineering and the engines and the specs and everything that went into that. So it was an introduction in my early years, but led to other things in my later. Most people wouldn't argue that Hendrick Motorsports is the premier organization, and you're sitting here as an engineer at Hendrick Motorsports. So let's step all the way back to your education. What did you receive your degree in, and did you do anything specific that kind of prepared you for this? My degree is in industrial engineering. I graduated from the University of Toledo in Toledo, Ohio. And I didn't really know what I was going to go into as a career post-college, but when I did graduate, I went into the railroad, and it actually prepared me really well for this job, which is interesting. You would wonder, how are those two things related? But really, there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes to make a train get from one place to another. And the same thing happens here. In order for those cars to run on the track and do it successfully and repeatably with the right quality, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and that was a parallel. Hendrick has a history of winning. There's more championships here than any other team. There's more race wins than any other team. You look at just Jeff and Jimmy combined, they've won just an astronomical amount of races. So you insert a young female engineer. How do you navigate through kind of giving some advice and helping change things when they're really, from perception, there may not be change needed, especially when the winning continues? Yeah, that's tough. We wonder if we're doing so well, why do we need to change? And ultimately, it's about changing continuously. If you're not changing, then you're sitting still, and the people that are striving to be like you are continually doing that. They're continually trying to do what you do. So if you don't continue to change or continue to improve, you're losing ground, and you want to stay ahead of the curve in that sense and continue to pave the way. That has to be pretty nice to be able to improve the quality of people's work day in and day out. Yeah, and that goes into, why change. I think, morale is always something that you want to continue to maintain. You want to have good morale amongst your workforce and make sure that the efforts they put in are adding value every single time. So if they have to go back and rework something, or they have to do something different or over again because we made decisions that require us to change, it can be frustrating. So we want to try and eliminate those kinds of things as much as possible, and we call those forms of waste that do consume costs and other resources such as time and money. Those are all wasteful things that we want to try and eliminate moving forward. We talked to drivers about what's it like to get that call that you're coming up to the big leagues. What was it like when you finally got the job here and you walked through the front door with the Hendrick monogram shirt? What did that feel like? It was really cool. Of course, when I got the call, it was really exciting, but I'm not sure it really hit me until I pulled into the parking lot that day and got to see campus and the signs, and there's so much pride here. So that was really when it came to be real.
But it's been a really good transfer coming from the railroad to Hendrick Motorsports. The people have been very receiving, and they're willing to share their experiences and their background with you to help you become a better contributor.
You've diversified within the organization, and I know you've presented a couple times in front of some different crew chiefs and drivers and different people. What was that like? I mean, were you well received within those people that we see on TV every weekend?
Yeah, I've been approached, from the crew chief level to take a look at some processes and find ways that we can improve, and that alone is really exciting to know that your experience and your background is something that they're interested in using. So that's been really a memorable experience that I've had here to work at that level and try and find improvements or find ways to improve the flow of our processes, whether it be communication or flow of material and people, and just see how that comes to life and how it translates to the track.
So life doesn't always go according to plan, but tell me your short-term and your long-term plan here at Hendrick and within motorsports in general.
Short term is really to focus on the projects that I'm working on now. We've developed an initiative at the engine shop called Leader, and it's really something that we're piloting there to sort of promote innovation amongst the people that do the work, to find improvements to our processes. So really putting our heart and soul into that, as well as maintaining the projects that are going on in the other departments on campus. So I want to see those things thrive. Leader is something that is, a ground-up type of thing that we've just developed from the grassroots, and to see that take hold and expand across the campus would be really cool. So we're giving it all we have there and making sure we take the right steps to implement that in a way that is successful in the long term, because I do have experience in doing things, implementing programs like that. And the best thing is that I can learn from those and, change, and change is also part of what I can do to do things better.
What about long term? And the reason I ask is Hendrick Motorsports has one of the longest in the garage female mechanics. I believe she's a tire specialist. There's female spotters, obviously female drivers, female car owners, but we don't have a female crew chief yet. Is that at all something you would be interested in? Do you ever want to go at track, or are you happy back here and this is kind of the long-term plan to build your stake within the home organization?
I think with my background and experience, my long-term will stay on campus. I'm not striving for a crew chief level position. I don't know that is for me, but I can certainly do whatever I can to help them be successful. And I hope to do that, throughout my career. I think right now my focus is in the engine shop, but when asked, I provide help in other places. So for my position, or the needs of my position to expand, would be something that I would like to see flourish in the long term.
So for a young student out there right now, what advice would you give them if they want to make it into this type of a field, and especially with regard to like what you do?
I would say, never count yourself out. I think if the opportunity presents itself, that's the first thing. But then, making sure that you put in the work to make the people know that you are the right person for that opportunity that comes from you. So, there's ways to get involved and try and get into motorsports, and NASCAR has a diversity program that is a program in which they promote females in NASCAR, as well as people from different multicultural backgrounds and ethnicities. They try and place them in internships and get them sort of rooted in the field. And usually an internship can lead to employment post-graduation. So it's a really cool program that they have, and they're really trying to diversify the sport, not just on the racing side, because they do have the Drive for Diversity program, but also on the engineering and other operations sides too. So
that's awesome. Well, you're paving a path, and we appreciate everything that you've done. It's cool to hear the story about the Railroad, the Diversity Council here at Hendrick, and then opening up doors for future engineers and definitely future female engineers. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.